I've looked at physical evidence. I've tried to stay away from the hearsay type evidence because, let's face it, 9/11 was a psychological operation. And in a psychological operation, no matter how honest people are, they have been led to conclude different things than what happened. But if you physically look at things with logic and with what you know and figure out what you know that you know and separate that from what you know that you don't know, and try not to confuse the two because you tend to bias your observations that way.
Okay, all right. I think we need to go to another film. We've got one called Dustification, so if we can run that second film, please, or Dustified. Here we go. This is several clips of the as I like to say, the collapses.
Okay. You can see that piece falling in front of that corner that dissolves. Okay.
It is an extraordinary film, and this is a spike here that just disappears in the middle here. There's a spike of the central column.
That may indeed be right above stairwell B.
And that just seems to, there it goes, it just seems to turn into
into dust.
And here's more images. I mean, the speed is unbelievable, isn't it? The speed of this activity, whatever it is.
Dustification.
This dustification.
A new phenomenon needs a new word to describe it, and I don't think we've ever seen a building do this before.
Well, no steel frame buildings, apart from those 3 on 9/11, have ever...
3? I think there were 7. Seven were destroyed that day.
Of course, that's true. We normally talk about the Twin Towers and Building 7,
right,
the tallest ones, but as you say, there were several others.
And that enormous dust cloud.
There's a sort of pyroclastic flow, isn't there? There, like a
But it wasn't
volcano.
hot. Wasn't hot.
It wasn't hot, was it? Or or was it? I mean,
we can look at the evidence.
We can look at the evidence. We've got some more photographs. I think this is.
But honestly, ask yourself when you look at that: does that look like a collapse? And what's trailing behind those pieces of steel? You see how that peels like a banana?
Spire again. Let's look at that.
But
spire.
did you see how it peels like a banana around it?
Yeah, that's true. But look at the spire. This is fascinating. This spire in the middle here, as it just seems to turn into dust. It's taking its time.
Yeah, it drops down a little bit and kind of just faints.
And that's it. It's
Poof.
gone. That's one of the most compelling things that I've seen, actually. I think we need to look at some photographs of... Let's look at image 113, if we can, please. Okay, this is 113. What is this telling us?
This is a still image where you see these wheat checks, the prefab outer units. They're 3 stories wide, 3 stories tall, 3 columns wide, prefab units the buildings were built out of, the outer columns. And you see
There's
groups
one
of those.
on the left, isn't there? The extreme left there. There's one of those. These are the outer steel sections that are performing a structural function.
Right.
Which is one of the reasons the windows were so small in the World Trade Center.
They're the distance between those columns.
Yeah,
the windows
because that was one of the reasons it was hard to let, because the windows were so small and people felt a bit constricted, apparently.
But this is steel falling. There, you can see some aluminum cladding which coated the steels or covered the steels floating around. But the basic thing you see falling is the steel. But what's trailing behind it? Is that from a dirty windowsill? All that dust?
Yeah, where does it come from?
Look, the steel dissolving into dust.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at 115 now, please. This is lots of different images of the same event.
Of those that spire is referred to. Yeah. And you can see how the tower peels away, kind of like a banana peeling away from those small group of columns that's referred to as the spire. Notice the spire extends above Building 7.
Yeah.
Building 7 is about 650 feet tall, I think. But the spire is about 700 feet tall.
These are these massively solid 47 central steel columns.
But just a group of them that just stay freestanding for a bit there.
Well, they would, wouldn't they? I mean,
they don't have anything loading on them.
Even if the official version, the pancaking, were to happen, it wouldn't take down the central columns.
Right.
They would still be standing there, surely. I mean, you're a structural engineer. You would be able to tell me that.
You're taking the load off of them, so they now have no reason to come down.
Yeah, and
They
they're
don't
not
have a
going to
load
blow
on.
down, are they? They're not going to.
Well, if they blew down, they'd take out several blocks worth of buildings because they.
Hundreds of thousands of tons, tens of
Well,
thousands.
and you have 700 feet of this beating pole going down. It's going to do some damage to adjacent buildings.
Okay, let's look at 116 then. This is another image of this spire.
And the sequence at the bottom, this is what you need to pay attention to very, very carefully. That first image, notice how there's blue sky in the background. There's crisp edges of those columns.
Yeah.
The tower had just peeled away from it and exposed these columns. And then pretty soon you notice, like in the middle picture, it's no longer a crisp edge. And then it turns to dust. Now some folks say that that's dust that settled on it.
And it's just blowing off.
Right, and it's so fine that it hangs in the air. If it's that fine and hangs in the air, how come you didn't see it hanging in the air in that first image?
When it was sharp, you mean?
Right, when the building peeled away from it,
So this
left it
is your
exposed.
scientific analysis.
If it was fine dust hanging in the air, first of all, how's it going to settle on a vertical column?
Okay, all right, let's talk about this dust, whether it was hot then. And before we do, let's look at this picture, 117 if we can. Right, these are the people covered in this dust.
The dust cloud rolled out, rolled over people, didn't burn them, just left them covered with dust.
Okay, somebody here has asked, I haven't got a name here, what happened to the huge antenna on top of the North Tower?
I believe it, for the most part, landed on the ground, surprisingly.
So the antenna
Parts of the antenna.
survived.
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it?